As I look around out here, it's kind of hard to believe that only a couple of weeks ago we were facing near flooding conditions. Everything was so wet and muddy, but man, what a difference a week of sunshine and north wind can make. In the last video, you guys saw me haul my calves to the sale, or at least you saw me haul some of them, and I feel like I never really put a bow on that. Today I want to go down, look at the calves that we kept, and talk a little bit about my takeaways from hauling calves this year. But there's a lot of other things that need to be done today as well. As you can see, the sun is shining, the grass is starting to grow, and spring is right around the corner. And in being consistent with that theme, I actually have a batch of chicks coming tomorrow, maybe the next day. They're shipping today, so they'll be here very soon, and I need to get ready for them. That's what's going on today on Farmer Tyler Ranch. As you look out here, my little corral or my calf lot, whatever you want to call it, you can see there's like almost no animals in here now compared to how it was before. But before I talk about the ones that I did keep, I want to roll some of the footage that I took from hauling that second load. In the last video, you guys saw me separate 5 steers and 2 heifers, I believe it was, out of the big group of calves that I had in the working corral. And the steers are going to be used as harvest steers for next year. The heifers will be used as replacement females for the herd. They will have their first calves next year. And the reason why the number of animals that I kept is relatively lower than what I usually do, if you've been with the channel for a while, you might have noticed that. The reason is simply that when I locked the calves up in the little corral here, I had one heifer that didn't come in. She wasn't like spooky or wild or anything. She was just laying next to the hot wire next to our harvest steers, and to try to get her into the little lot here, I probably would have ended up losing all the ones that I had caught. So I decided she was a pretty good looking heifer that I would just go ahead and keep her, which meant that was one less replacement female I had to pull out of the main group. As a matter of fact, this is her right here on the end. I think she's, out of the 3, she's the only heifer I kept that is solid black. Now the steers, on the other hand, if you remember last year I kept 10, and this year I only pulled 5 out. But what you may have forgotten, or maybe not, is that I've already got 2 here in the bullpen keeping my yearling bull company. So that will leave me with a total of 7 harvest steers, which is still a little bit less than what we kept last year. But I think last year I might have overestimated the market a little bit. When picking out steers, I'm basically just looking for the biggest ones. If they are bigger at weaning, which these would have been, then they should be better at harvest weight. My replacement heifers, on the other hand, there are a few more things that I look at when keeping them. And with them, I want to see big bodies. Basically, the bigger their bodies are, the more room they have to make a calf, is kind of the way I think about it. And I expect that they will have less trouble delivering that first calf when the time comes. The other thing that I want to look at with replacement heifers is wider hips. The ones that have nice wide frames like that, they do kind of stand out when you have them in a group. If I just show you these girls right now, it's not going to be that easy to notice, but if you were able to compare these girls to some of the ones that went down the road, I think it would be a lot more evident. For my replacement females, I've got this one. I call this like a panda face heifer, and obviously because the way their markings are, it's kind of similar to a panda. I've been watching this heifer since she was a calf, and she was a really fantastic looking calf, so one could assume that from a genetic standpoint she would be a good choice of a cow that could raise a good looking calf, because she was one herself. I've also got this black white face heifer back here that's kind of like a half panda. She's got one black mark on her eye, and she just was put together well, I thought. Compared to what was in the pen, she really stood out to me as being a little bit larger framed, a little bit wider framed, I should say, and not necessarily a tall calf, but she has a lot of body. The last heifer was that solid black one that I showed you before, and she checks all those boxes as well. Maybe not as well as these first two do, but the other thing that I liked about her is that when she was out and I was kind of messing with her, seeing if I could get her to go back in, she was not very flighty, she was not very spooky, she didn't just take off running like she's crazy. So that's probably the last criteria that really maybe gets overlooked a lot of times, but I think is equally as important as a lot of these other things, is disposition. Well, the theme of hauling calves this year was mud. Man, the mud in here was just terrible. And a lot of people have suggestions about what to do to try to mitigate it, but I think a lot of people don't understand the topography of where I live. I'm up here in the north central valley of California, and it is so flat where I live that I can see from the Sierra Nevadas all the way back to the coastal range here on the other side. I'm not sure how many miles that is that I'm able to see, but it's a really long way. The point is that when you have record-breaking rainfall like we have this year, you're just gonna have mud. There's literally not enough places for it to drain off fast enough to avoid it. But what compounded the problem and made it 10 times, maybe 100 times worse, and it was totally my fault, is that I'd been housing my harvest steers in this pen, and what that meant is that they've been walking around in here, churning that up through all those storms, all that rain. They've just been digging this down more and more and more. You guys may remember that I gave them access to the mound out there so that they had a spot to get out of it, but they still had to come up here to eat and get water. So that meant that every day they were traveling through this working area, which is the same area that I used to load the calves into the trailer. This management style would have worked fine last year because we barely had any rain, which is really kind of becoming the norm out here. But this year, the rain came and this just did not work. So I need to adjust my management so that this doesn't happen again. And I think that the best way to sort of scoot around this is to not have harvest appointments for these steers in the wintertime. I think I'm just gonna push those dates back into the spring so that they don't have to be housed in this pen. They could just stay at the steer pasture, and then even though this gets a lot of water, it's not constantly being churned up and mixed in, and that goes such a long way for preventing mud. So we live and we learn, right? My plan is to rebuild a lot of these areas of the corral that gave me trouble this year, which has been my plan for a long time now. It's not in reaction to what happened this time. But with doing that and a little bit of a different management style, I think shipping calves next year is gonna go a lot smoother. One more thing that I did kind of want to show is I've noticed some big burrows going under the concrete slab here in the big corral. And I don't like that, because what can happen is whatever animal is doing this, you know, they're making a big void underneath the concrete where it could potentially be weak, crack. I don't know what animal is doing this. The plan is to put the trail camera up in the barn here, and hopefully I can catch something tonight or tomorrow night or whenever. And once I know what I'm dealing with, then I will know how to trap it or what to use as bait to trap it. I'm really hoping it's not one of my barn cats doing this, and that it's, you know, like a possum, or hopefully not a skunk, actually. But a possum or a skunk I wouldn't mind trapping and relocating to maybe somewhere not on this world. But the cats, I don't want to bother them. I want them to stay in here because they're doing a pretty good job with rodent control. Them, in conjunction with my good nature traps, I've noticed a pretty significant decrease in rodent activity out here this year, which is awesome. So I definitely don't want to get the barn kitties out of here, but whatever's digging under this slab's got to go. From what I see, this burrow here is the biggest one. It looks like it has the freshest activity. So I'm going to put the camera right here. and hopefully we can figure out what this is. All right, well, hopefully by the next video, I can show you guys some footage and we'll know what we got. So I got to thinking that the garage here would be a great place to put a brooder for chicks. I've got plenty of room out here, there's power out here, water is nearby, and these brooders won't be in my way in the shop, which is what I've done in the past. The other day I put a new outlet in here with 4 outlets in it that are 3-prong, and I'm gonna use this for my heat lamps, which means that I'll put the brooders right here where I'm standing. I'm not sure. I think I'm gonna make 2, and the reason for that is that I wanna keep my meat birds and my egg layers separate. When they're baby chicks, it really doesn't matter, but as they grow, the meat birds are bigger, but they're not as agile and active as the egg layer. So what happens is the egg layer chicks, although they're a lot smaller, will end up bullying the meat birds. It's kind of a weird thing. We're gonna build some brooders, let's get to it. I could probably cut 2 sheets at once, Callie. I might even be able to cut all 3 at once. Not bad for a battery-powered saw. Whoever measured those was using the same tape. They line up perfect. Taking a quick break here because I see out here in the rice field what looks like 3 bald eagles sitting on the levee. Man, I wish I had a good zoom lens to show you guys. With the naked eye, I can see them fairly well, but the camera just doesn't really do them justice. They are just humongous. This is an extremely rare sight. I've seen 1 by itself hunting out here. I've never seen 2 together. I've definitely never seen 3 together like that. That's pretty cool. So the reason that those eagles are here is because they follow the ducks and the geese, and they'll just kind of pick one off once in a while, or I don't know if they're waiting to find wounded ones or if they'll just swoop in and grab one when they get hungry. I'm not really sure, but that's why they're here. In fact, I can tell that the one sitting in the middle there is eating something, and I suspect it's a duck or a goose. Oh, there they go. Oh, and there goes every other duck in that rice field. You can tell the ducks do not like being underneath the eagle. Well, what a treat. Now it's back to work. Well, there you have it. That's about as basic of a design as you can get, but I'm actually really happy with this, and I'll show you a couple of the reasons why. The first thing that I really like about this is its size. In the past, I've used water troughs, rabbit cages, several different things. But what I've learned is that when you put the baby chicks in there, everything seems big enough. But a few weeks later, once they start growing, everything seems too small. Maybe this will be no different, but this is the biggest brooder that I've ever used. This measures 4 by 8, so it's pretty good size. I've got 2 heat lamps here. That should be enough for the amount of chicks that I have coming. Tomorrow, I'm supposed to get 50. So we'll see how many of them make it. And I think that when they outgrow this brooder, they'll be ready to go outside anyway. Next is the construction, and not to say that this is so perfectly made, but the thing that I did here very intentionally is I made this easy to take apart and easy to store once it is in pieces. So what I'll be left with are just basically sheets of plywood with these 2x3s screwed to them. I can take this apart super easy and then just stuff it up against a wall somewhere. It won't take up hardly any room while I'm storing it, and that's going to be really nice, as opposed to like a water trough that takes up a ton of room whether you're using it or not. Really the only thing that's left to do here is I need to put some sort of bedding or something on the ground here. This concrete is super cold, and even with the heat lamps shining on it for a while, it still is pretty cold. What chicks will do when they get cold is they sort of like huddle together. Well, if they're huddling right down on that concrete, I don't think they're ever really going to be able to warm up. All right, last thing I need to do is walk down here and grab a 55-gallon drum to store my feed in, and then I think I'll be ready. You guys got my barrels back here? Okay. Well, there they are. Just gotta get that panel out of there. Oh shoot, what is that? Oh, I don't know if you guys can see that. You guys see what's back there? Well, I am sure glad that I didn't just charge back in here and start grabbing barrels. Yeah, I'm guessing it'll show fine on the camera, but there's a skunk back there, and I don't want to get sprayed by that. And I'm not sure why it's not moving. It doesn't seem too bothered by my presence. Maybe it thinks it's hidden well enough. I kind of like bet that I could get that yellow one without an issue. I don't know. Man, if that thing comes running out of there, you guys are gonna see me run like a little girl. Be able to get this one. Okay, I'm getting out of here before I run out of luck. It's getting agitated, I can see it. I just can't figure out what that skunk is doing back there. And now that I think about it, Callie has been really interested in the back corner of the bullpen here. And I bet you that skunk's been there all day, but I can't imagine that it did not spray Callie, because she was back there. She was on this side of the building sniffing. I mean, I didn't really know why. I thought mice were back there that, you know, she was getting her attention, but the skunk is kind of like fidgeting around back there, and it's not like laying down like it's gonna die or anything like that. I'm wondering if it's not giving birth right now, or has recently, or is about to, or whatever. You know, and that's just sort of because it looks like it's kind of dug like a nest there, and I don't think they live that way. I think they tunnel underground. So I don't know. This is very strange to me, and I know that I should walk away because I haven't been sprayed yet. Walk away while you're ahead, but I just can't leave it alone. I'm very curious, and I guess that might be my fatal flaw. Well, I got what I came for, and I didn't get sprayed, so I think I just better be happy with that. Thanks for hanging out with me today, guys, and I hope I'll see you again on Farmer Tyler Ranch.